The first warning came not with a bang, but with a whisper of quantum disruption across deep space monitoring systems. Sensors at the edge of the solar system flickered, then stabilized, revealing a massive vessel that seemed to materialize from the very fabric of vacuum. Jack Bennett leaned forward in the holographic command center, his weathered hands gripping the edge of the strategic display. Decades of preparation had led to this moment. The United Earth Defense Council had been more than a mere bureaucratic organization. It was a silent, patient predator waiting for its chance. The Archean ship was a marvel of alien engineering. Crystalline structures that defied human understanding of metallurgy stretched across kilometers of space. Its hull shifted and shimmered, adaptive camouflage technology that could alter its very appearance to match surrounding space. Navigation lights pulsed in frequencies that human eyes would find impossible to perceive. "Incoming transmission," announced Lisa Nakamura, the lead communication specialist. Her fingers danced across quantum-encrypted interfaces, routing the alien communication through multiple layers of filtering and translation algorithms. The holographic display flickered to life. Grand Diplomat Zarek appeared, a creature that seemed sculpted from living obsidian. Reptilian features combined with mechanical augmentations created a being that was neither fully organic nor completely synthetic. Multiple eyes, some biological, some technological, scanned the human representatives with a mixture of curiosity and profound contempt. "Inhabitants of Earth," the translation matrix rendered his words with clinical precision. "The galactic hegemony has determined your civilization's status. You will surrender all technological archives, planetary resources, and population centers. Resistance is mathematically calculated as futile." Jack Bennett's lips curled into a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Around him, the command center remained perfectly still. Every person knew their role. Every system was prepared. What the Archeans didn't understand was that humanity had been preparing for this moment for generations. The United Earth Defense Council wasn't just a military organization. It was the culmination of humanity's most ambitious project. Every war, every technological breakthrough, every seemingly random scientific exploration had been quietly guided toward this singular purpose. Climate change research had developed adaptive material sciences. Quantum computing emerged from medical research platforms. Nanotechnology, originally designed for medical treatments, now existed as a potential weapon system. Space exploration missions had been carefully constructed not just to explore, but to understand potential extraterrestrial threats. Zarek continued his proclamation, unaware that every word was being analyzed by systems far more complex than he could imagine. Linguistic algorithms dissected his communication. Quantum computers ran millions of potential scenario calculations per second. The transmission itself was becoming a weapon. Lisa Nakamura's console showed multiple layers of data: translation matrices, communication analysis, technological signature identification. Each stream of information was a potential vulnerability for the alien vessel. "Your technological level is insufficient," Zarek continued. "The hegemony has conquered civilizations far more advanced. Your species will be integrated. Resistance is." "Interesting proposal," Jack Bennett interrupted, his voice calm and measured. The Grand Diplomat seemed momentarily confused. Interruption was not part of the standard surrender protocol he had executed hundreds of times across different star systems. Behind Bennett, a series of holographic displays began to shift. Not dramatically, not with warning sirens or flashing lights, just a quiet, systematic transformation that would have been invisible to anyone not trained to notice. Orbital defense platforms, disguised as communication satellites, began to realign. Research facilities across the planet, seemingly isolated and unconnected, started synchronizing their quantum communication networks. Underground facilities that had existed as nothing more than rumored government black sites became active. Zarek's multiple eyes began to show the first hint of uncertainty. Humanity had been waiting. Not out of fear, not out of preparation for defense. They had been waiting for an opportunity. And now, That opportunity had arrived. The negotiation chamber was a masterpiece of technological subterfuge. What appeared to be a simple meeting room was, in reality, a complex network of quantum sensors, communication interceptors, and adaptive recording systems. Every surface, every molecule of air was being analyzed, processed, and weaponized. Emily Rodriguez sat across from Grand Diplomat Zarek, her posture relaxed, but her mind operating at hyperlight speeds. She was more than a diplomat. She was a carefully selected instrument of human strategy. Years of specialized training in xenolinguistics, psychological warfare, and strategic communication had prepared her for this moment. Zarek's translation device hummed with an underlying mechanical pulse. "Your civilization has two choices," he began, his multiple eyes reflecting different spectrums of light. "Complete submission to the galactic hegemony or total extinction. We have extinguished civilizations far more technologically advanced than yours." A holographic display materialized between them, showing a star chart marked with dozens of conquered worlds. Each point represented a civilization that had fallen to the alien empire, their final moments reduced to cold statistical data points. Emily's right hand rested near a seemingly innocuous communication device. To an outside observer, it might have looked like a simple tablet. In reality, it was a quantum entanglement communication module that could transmit and receive information across multiple layers of reality. "Let's discuss the terms," she said, her voice calm and measured. What followed was not a negotiation, but a carefully choreographed dance of information and misdirection. Every word spoken was a potential vector for technological and psychological infiltration. Michael Wong watched from a remote monitoring station, his fingers dancing across holographic interfaces. Each of Emily's responses was carefully crafted, not just to communicate, but to gather intelligence. The linguistic patterns were designed to probe the communication protocols of the alien delegation. Zarek presented what he believed were ironclad terms of surrender: complete transfer of technological archives, relocation of human population centers, mandatory genetic cataloging for potential integration into the hegemony's workforce. What he didn't realize was that each term was becoming a pathway, an opportunity for human intelligence to dig deeper into alien systems. "We will need time to prepare the transfer," Emily said, her tone professional and compliant. Time. That was the key. Every second was an opportunity. In orbital facilities disguised as communication satellites, teams of scientists were already dismantling and reverse engineering captured alien communication fragments. Quantum computers were running millions of simulation scenarios, predicting potential alien responses with increasing accuracy. The negotiation chamber itself was a trap. Microscopic nanite collectors were gathering molecular and electromagnetic data from the alien delegation. Every breath, every electromagnetic emission was being recorded, analyzed, and processed. Zarek continued to outline the terms of surrender, believing he was speaking to a defeated civilization. His confidence was a weapon that would ultimately be turned against him. "Your technological archives will be transferred within 72 standard galactic cycles," Emily confirmed, her fingers subtly triggering a series of background protocols. What appeared to be a simple confirmation was, in fact, a complex series of communication infiltration sequences. Each word was a potential breach point, each moment of apparent compliance, a strategic maneuver. Michael Wong's monitoring station showed multiple layers of data: linguistic analysis, communication protocol mapping, technological signature identification. What looked like a simple diplomatic meeting was, in reality, a multi-dimensional intelligence gathering operation. The nanite collectors were building a comprehensive map of alien communication technologies. Quantum entanglement modules were creating backdoor access points into alien communication networks. Every moment of the negotiation was transforming into a comprehensive intelligence operation. Zarek believed he was conducting a standard surrender protocol. He had no concept of the intricate technological and psychological warfare being waged around him. Humanity wasn't just preparing for potential conflict. They were rewriting the very concept of first contact. And the hegemony had no idea what was coming. The world moved with a precision that defied casual observation. What appeared to be ordinary research facilities, industrial complexes, and communication centers were, in reality, nodes of a global defense network that had been decades in the making. Michael Wong stood in the central command hub beneath the Rocky Mountains, a facility that looked like nothing more than a standard geological research station from the surface. Holographic displays surrounded him, each screen a window into a different layer of humanity's silent mobilization. Quantum computing clusters that had spent years disguised as climate modeling systems now churned through invasion scenarios at impossible speeds. Each calculation was a weapon, each algorithm a potential shield. The computers didn't just predict. They prepared, adapting in real time to the minimal data received from the alien diplomatic transmission. "Activate secondary protocol," Michael murmured into his quantum-encrypted communication module. Around the world, seemingly unrelated systems began to synchronize. Solar research facilities in Chile, nanotechnology labs in Singapore, quantum communication research centers in Switzerland. Each appeared independent, but they were threads in a global tapestry of defense. Dr. Sarah Thompson watched from her laboratory in Tokyo. What looked like a standard medical research facility was actually a hub for psychological warfare technologies. Her team had spent years developing communication algorithms designed to analyze and potentially disrupt alien communication patterns. "We're seeing initial penetration of their communication protocols," she reported, her fingers dancing across a holographic interface that looked more like an abstract art piece than a scientific instrument. In orbit, what appeared to be standard communication satellites began to reconfigure. Adaptive materials developed through decades of climate change research now served a different purpose. Each satellite was a potential weapon, each solar panel a potential sensor array. The global defense network was not a military in the traditional sense. It was an organism. Adaptive, intelligent, distributed. Underground facilities that had existed as nothing more than rumored government projects now hummed with activity. Nanotechnology research that had supposedly been focused on medical applications now revealed its true purpose. Swarms of microscopic machines, originally designed to repair human tissue, could now be weaponized in ways the aliens could never anticipate. Jack Bennett's voice came through the quantum communication network. "All systems are green. Begin passive infiltration protocols." Michael Wong watched as multiple systems began to shift. It wasn't a dramatic transformation. No sirens, no flashing lights. Just a quiet, systematic reorganization that would have been invisible to anyone not trained to see the underlying patterns. In the Pacific Ocean, what looked like standard deep-sea research platforms began to reconfigure. Adaptive materials developed for underwater exploration now served a different purpose. Each platform could become a potential defensive node, each sensor a potential weapon. The preparations were not about traditional military might. They were about transformation, adaptation, the ability to turn any system, any environment into a potential defensive mechanism. Nanotechnology research facilities in Brazil began to synchronize with quantum computing centers in India. Communication protocols developed for international scientific collaboration now became channels for a global defense network. "We're seeing initial penetration of their communication encryption," Sarah reported. "Our linguistic analysis algorithms are breaking down their communication patterns faster than they can adapt." Each moment of the alien diplomatic transmission was being transformed into a potential vulnerability. Every word was a pathway, every pause an opportunity for infiltration. The global defense network wasn't just preparing for potential conflict. It was redefining the very concept of defense. Satellite imaging systems that had been developed for climate monitoring now served as advanced sensor arrays. Each pixel was a potential intelligence gathering point. Each moment of observation was a weapon. Michael Wong smiled. The aliens believed they were conducting a standard invasion protocol. They had no concept of the complex, adaptive system they were about to encounter. Humanity had been waiting. Not out of fear, not out of desperation. They had been waiting for an opportunity to show the universe exactly what they were capable of. And now, that opportunity had arrived. The first wave of alien scout ships approached Earth's orbital perimeter with calculated precision. Advanced sensors probed the planet's defensive capabilities, expecting the routine submission they had witnessed 100 times before. They found something entirely different. Captain Robert Garcia watched from the orbital command station as the alien vessels began their initial reconnaissance. His fingers hovered above a holographic interface that looked more like an abstract painting than a weapon system. Each touch sent ripples of quantum-encrypted commands through a network that defied traditional understanding of military infrastructure. The scout ship's first scanning pulses met an unexpected resistance. What should have been straightforward electromagnetic penetration became a labyrinth of adaptive defensive systems. Nanite swarms, originally developed for medical research, now transformed into an intelligent defensive network. "Initiate adaptive response protocol," Garcia muttered. The nanites didn't just block the alien scans. They analyzed them, learned from them, began to reconstruct the alien technological signatures in real time. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, lead researcher of the Quantum Adaptive Defense Initiative, monitored the interaction from her laboratory in Buenos Aires. What looked like a standard research facility was, in reality, the nerve center of humanity's most advanced technological warfare system. "They're using a multispectral scanning approach," she reported, her voice calm despite the magnitude of the moment. "Quantum encryption is holding. Our adaptive systems are beginning to map their communication protocols." The alien scout ships fired their first preliminary investigation beams. These were not weapons, but advanced scanning technologies that had dismantled countless civilizations before. Probes designed to penetrate and analyze planetary defense systems. They encountered something unprecedented. Each scanning beam was not just deflected. It was captured, analyzed, transformed. The nanite swarms didn't just defend. They began to actively manipulate the incoming technological probes. Microscopic machines that could restructure themselves at the molecular level began to create complex counter-signatures. They didn't just block the alien technology. They began to understand it, to speak its language. "Fascinating," Elena muttered, watching multiple holographic displays that showed the technological dance happening thousands of kilometers above the Earth's surface. The alien vessels began to experience system anomalies. Communication channels became contaminated with adaptive algorithmic intrusions. What should have been clean, precise scanning became a chaotic information storm. Quantum computers, disguised as climate research systems, began to predict and counter alien technological approaches faster than the aliens could adapt. Each moment of interaction became an opportunity for technological infiltration. "They're attempting to establish a communication baseline," Michael Wong reported from the underground command center. "Our linguistic algorithms are several steps ahead." The nanite swarms were more than just a defensive mechanism. They were a living, learning technological ecosystem. Each probe, each scanning beam became an opportunity to understand, to adapt, to counter. Aboard the alien scout ships, veteran technological warfare specialists began to experience something they had never encountered before. Their systems were not just being blocked, they were being actively studied, manipulated, transformed. Communication channels became contaminated. Scanning beams were reflected back with added complexity. The very act of observation was becoming a vulnerability. "Quantum entanglement protocols are holding," Elena reported. "We're beginning to establish a comprehensive technological map of their communication systems." The orbital space around Earth transformed. What looked like a standard defensive perimeter became a complex, adaptive technological battlefield. Each satellite, each defensive platform was not just a static weapon. It was a living, learning system. The alien scout ships began to experience systemic failures. Communication channels became unreliable. Scanning systems started to return impossible data. Their technological superiority was being systematically dismantled. Captain Garcia allowed himself a slight smile. Initiate secondary infiltration protocols. The nanite swarms began to do more than defend. They began to actively probe, to explore, to understand the alien technological infrastructure. Humanity was not just defending. They were learning, adapting, transforming the very concept of technological warfare. The universe was about to learn a valuable lesson about human potential. And the first lesson was being taught right here, in the complex dance of technological warfare happening far above the Earth's surface. The most powerful weapon was not a missile, not a quantum cannon, not a nanite swarm. It was information. Sarah Thompson stood in the Tokyo Research Facility, surrounded by holographic displays that pulsed with complex linguistic algorithms. Her team represented the pinnacle of human psychological warfare research, specialists who understood that the true battlefield existed in the realm of perception, communication, and understanding. Initiate primary communication infiltration, she commanded. The alien communication networks had been carefully mapped during the initial reconnaissance. Each transmission, each communication protocol was now a potential vector for psychological manipulation. The human teams had spent years developing algorithms that could not just translate alien languages, but understand the fundamental psychological structures behind their communication. What looked like simple translation was, in reality, a comprehensive psychological warfare system. The first wave of targeted transmissions began. These were not simple propaganda messages. They were carefully crafted linguistic constructs designed to create doubt, generate internal conflict, and systematically dismantle the alien military's cohesion. In the hegemony's communication centers, veteran communication specialists began to experience something unprecedented. Their standard communication protocols began to break down in subtle, almost imperceptible ways. A transmission about a potential internal threat here. A subtle suggestion of leadership weakness there. Each message was designed with mathematical precision, targeting the specific psychological vulnerabilities of the alien hierarchical structure. Michael Wong monitored the psychological warfare algorithms from the underground command center. Quantum computers processed millions of potential communication scenarios per second. Each transmission was a carefully calculated weapon. "We're seeing initial psychological destabilization," he reported. "Their communication networks are beginning to show signs of internal doubt." The alien military structure had always relied on absolute certainty, hierarchical communication that flowed from top to bottom with unquestioned authority. Humanity was about to demonstrate how that very structure could become a fatal weakness. Sarah's team had spent years studying the alien communication patterns, not just their language, but the underlying psychological structures, how they communicated, how they made decisions, what triggered doubt, what generated internal conflict. The first signs of psychological breakdown were subtle. Communication channels began to show inconsistencies. Reports from different military units became slightly misaligned. The absolute certainty that had defined the hegemony's military approach began to fracture. Quantum encrypted communication modules transmitted messages that appeared to come from within the alien military structure. Each message was a precisely calculated piece of psychological manipulation. Potential internal leadership challenge detected in Third Communication Sector, Elena Rodriguez reported from her monitoring station. The human psychological warfare was not about creating outright conflict. It was about generating doubt, creating internal friction, systematically undermining the absolute certainty that had been the alien military's greatest strength. Linguistic algorithms analyzed every transmission. Every communication channel became a potential weapon. The very act of communication was being transformed into a method of psychological warfare. The alien military communications began to show signs of hesitation. Slight pauses, subtle inconsistencies. The machine-like precision of their communication began to fracture. Psychological destabilization at 37%. Michael reported. Their decision-making processes are beginning to show significant deviation from standard protocols. Each transmission was a carefully designed psychological weapon. Not a direct attack, but a subtle erosion of confidence. a systematic breakdown of their absolute certainty. The underground command center hummed with activity. Quantum computers processed millions of potential communication scenarios. Each algorithm was a weapon. Each transmission a potential method of psychological manipulation. Sarah Thompson allowed herself a slight smile. The true battlefield was not in space, not on planetary surfaces. It was in the complex realm of perception and communication, and humanity was about to demonstrate its mastery. The alien military was experiencing something it had never encountered before, not just external resistance, but a systematic, mathematically precise psychological warfare that attacked the very foundations of their communication and decision-making structures. The universe was about to learn a valuable lesson about human potential, and the lesson was just beginning. The solar system transformed into a weapon. Captain Robert Garcia guided the experimental human fleet with a precision that defied traditional military doctrine. The battle space around Jupiter was no longer just a location. It was a living, dynamic battlefield where every planetary body, every gravitational force became a potential strategic asset. The alien invasion fleet emerged from hyperspace, expecting the routine submission they had enacted countless times before. Their massive warships, technological marvels that had crushed hundreds of civilizations, spread out in a standard invasion formation. They found something entirely unexpected. Jupiter itself became a weapon. The massive gas giant's complex magnetic field, its intense radiation belts, its swirling storm systems, all became integrated into the human defensive strategy. Gravitational assists turned into offensive maneuvers. Radiation bands became defensive shields. Initiate planetary defense protocol, Garcia commanded. The first alien ships discovered that standard approach vectors were impossible. Gravitational calculations that had been perfected over decades of solar system exploration now became a complex defensive mechanism. Each approach was met with unexpected resistance. Automated defense platforms, disguised as communication satellites and research stations, began to activate. These were not simple weapons. They were adaptive systems that could reconfigure themselves faster than the alien targeting computers could track. Dr. Elena Rodriguez monitored the battle from the underground command center. Quantum computers processed millions of potential scenarios per second. Each moment of the confrontation was an opportunity for technological learning. Gravitational manipulation at 78% efficiency, she reported. Planetary defense systems are fully integrated. The alien fleet commanders had never encountered a defensive strategy like this. Their invasion protocols, perfected over centuries of conquest, began to break down. Swarms of autonomous defense platforms emerged from seemingly empty space. What looked like standard communication satellites transformed into complex weapon systems. Each platform was not just a static defensive point. It was an intelligent, adaptive combat node. Moons became weapons. Asteroids became guided projectiles. The entire solar system was transforming into a complex, adaptive defensive network. Secondary infiltration protocols are active, Michael Wong reported from the command center. Their communication networks are experiencing systemic disruption. The battle was not just about destroying alien ships. It was about demonstrating a fundamental difference in technological approach. Where the alien fleet relied on massive, centralized weapon systems, the human defense was distributed. Adaptive. Intelligent. Europa's ice surface became a complex sensor array. Eo's volcanic activity was transformed into a defensive mechanism. The radiation bands around Jupiter became a weapon more effective than any traditional energy shield. The alien fleet began to experience systemic failures. Communication channels became unreliable. Targeting systems returned impossible data. Their technological superiority was being systematically dismantled. Captain Garcia's voice remained calm. Initiate quantum entanglement communication protocols. The experimental human fleet didn't just fight. They danced. Each ship moved with a precision that seemed to defy traditional physics. Gravitational assists. Radiation manipulation. Complex maneuvers that would have been impossible with traditional propulsion systems. Psychological destabilization at 62%, Elena reported. Their fleet command structure is beginning to show significant breakdown. The battle around Jupiter was more than a military confrontation. It was a demonstration of a fundamentally different approach to technological warfare. Humanity was not just defending. They were learning, adapting, transforming the very concept of space combat. The alien fleet commanders watched in growing horror as their invasion protocol collapsed. Their massive warships, technological marvels that had crushed hundreds of civilizations, became increasingly ineffective. The solar system itself had become a weapon, and humanity was its master. The universe was about to learn a valuable lesson about human potential, and the lesson was being written in a complex gravitational dance around Jupiter. The true battlefield was not defined by physical space or technological superiority. It was the realm of perception. Deep within the communication networks of the hegemony's central command, something unprecedented was happening. The carefully constructed facade of invincibility began to crumble, not from external attack, but from within. Grand Admiral Krelak stared at the communication displays, watching his once impenetrable military structure dissolve in real time. The first signs had been subtle. Miscommunications, slight hesitations in strategic responses, unexplained doubts creeping into once absolute decision-making processes. Sarah Thompson watched from her Tokyo research facility, each holographic display a window into the complex psychological warfare unfolding across light years. The human strategy was not about destruction. It was about deconstruction. Intercepted communications revealed a growing panic that defied the hegemony's centuries of conquest. Their predictive algorithms, systems that had systematically dismantled hundreds of civilizations, began to fail catastrophically. Psychological destabilization protocols are reaching critical mass, Michael Wong reported from the Underground Command Center. The alien military doctrine had been built on three fundamental principles: absolute certainty, hierarchical precision, and overwhelming force. Humanity was about to demonstrate how each of these could become a fatal vulnerability. Targeted communication infiltrations began to create microscopic fractures in the hegemony's communication structure. Messages that appeared to come from within their own command structure suggested potential internal threats. Subtle linguistic constructs introduced doubt where absolute certainty had once reigned. Grand Admiral Krelak received a communication that made no sense, a report suggesting potential betrayal within the highest levels of military leadership. The message was crafted with such precision that it triggered every paranoid protocol built into their communication systems. "Verify communication source," he commanded. But verification became impossible. Each attempt to trace the communication source led to another layer of complexity. Quantum-encrypted algorithms created communication labyrinths that defied traditional intelligence-gathering methods. The human psychological warfare teams had spent decades studying the alien communication structures, not just their language, but the fundamental psychological mechanisms that govern their decision-making processes. Elena Rodriguez monitored the psychological breakdown with scientific precision. "We're seeing complete systemic disintegration of their communication protocols," she reported. "Their predictive models are collapsing faster than they can adapt." The alien military had always relied on a top-down communication structure. Information flowed from leadership to lower ranks with absolute authority. Humanity was systematically demonstrating how that very structure could become a fatal weakness. Communication channels became contaminated with carefully crafted doubt. Each transmission introduced subtle inconsistencies that attacked the very foundation of their hierarchical system. Psychological destabilization approaching 95%, Michael reported. The experimental linguistic algorithms did more than translate. They understood. They anticipated. They manipulated. Grand Admiral Krelak watched in growing horror as his military structure began to fracture. Communication channels that had been absolute became unreliable. Strategic reports became contaminated with doubt. The machine-like precision of hegemony military communication dissolved into chaos. Sarah Thompson allowed herself a momentary smile. The true weapon was not technological. It was informational. The human teams had transformed communication itself into a weapon more powerful than any physical technology. They're experiencing systemic psychological collapse, Elena reported. Their entire communication infrastructure is becoming unreliable. The alien military commanders began to experience something they had never encountered before: genuine uncertainty. Each communication became a potential threat. Each strategic decision became paralyzed by potential internal betrayal. The universe was about to learn a valuable lesson about human potential. Humanity had not just developed a method of warfare. They had reimagined the very concept of conflict. And the hegemony was about to become the demonstration of that reimagination. The end came not with a massive battle, but with a systematic dismantling of an entire galactic civilization. Grand Diplomat Zarek stood before the communication console, his multiple eyes reflecting a profound sense of defeat that transcended physical loss. The hegemony's vast interstellar empire, centuries of conquest, millennia of technological superiority, had been reduced to a collection of disconnected, panicked communication fragments. Jack Bennett watched from the United Earth Defense Council's command center, his expression a mixture of calculated satisfaction and strategic contemplation. The surrender, when it came, was not a dramatic moment of military capitulation. It was a slow, systematic collapse of an entire civilization's ability to maintain its own structure. Communication networks that had once been the pride of the hegemony became contaminated information systems. Strategic command structures dissolved into chaos. The absolute certainty that had defined their military doctrine became their ultimate weakness. Receiving final communication transmission, Michael Wong reported, his fingers dancing across quantum-encrypted interfaces. The message was unlike any surrender in galactic history. Grand Diplomat Zarek's transmission revealed the complete psychological and technological breakdown of the hegemony. Their military structure had been systematically dismantled not through traditional warfare, but through a complex manipulation of information, communication, and perception. Sarah Thompson's linguistic warfare algorithms had done more than just create doubt. They had fundamentally reconstructed the alien civilization's understanding of conflict, communication, and survival. The human approach was never about destruction, Elena Rodriguez noted, analyzing the final transmissions. It was about comprehensive transformation. Every technological system the hegemony possessed had been turned into a potential vulnerability. Quantum communication networks became pathways for psychological infiltration. Advanced scanning technologies became methods of systematic deconstruction. The experimental human defense teams had transformed the entire concept of warfare. Jack Bennett's voice remained calm. Confirm final surrender protocols. The surrender document was a complex piece of linguistic engineering. Each word, each communication channel was a carefully designed mechanism that prevented any potential future resistance. It was not just a surrender. It was a complete systemic reconstruction. Quantum computers processed the transmission, ensuring every potential scenario was accounted for. The human teams had spent decades preparing for this moment, not just to defeat an enemy, but to fundamentally reshape the potential for future conflict. Psychological destabilization complete, Michael reported. Their entire communication infrastructure has collapsed. The alien military commanders had experienced something unprecedented. Their absolute certainty, the fundamental belief in their technological and strategic superiority, had been systematically dismantled. Humanity had not just won a war. They had reimagined the entire concept of conflict. The experimental defense teams had demonstrated a fundamental truth about human potential. Conflict was not about destruction. It was about understanding, adaptation, transformation. Grand Diplomat Zarek's final transmission revealed the complete psychological breakdown of the hegemony's leadership. Their predictive models, their communication structures, their entire understanding of strategic conflict had been comprehensively deconstructed. We surrender, the transmission read, with the full understanding that we do not comprehend the nature of our defeat. Jack Bennett allowed himself a momentary smile. The underground command center hummed with a quiet sense of accomplishment. Quantum computers continued to process the final transmissions, ensuring every potential scenario was accounted for. The universe was about to learn a valuable lesson about human potential. Conflict was not about overwhelming force. It was about understanding, about adaptation, about transformation, and humanity had just become the master of that transformation. Epilogue. In the years that followed, other potential alien threats would observe humanity with a mixture of terror and profound respect. The message was clear: do not mistake human patience for weakness. The universe had learned its lesson, and humanity was just beginning to explore its potential.